Okay, so I guess Freedom School is a collective of Asian youth in the GTA and youth being under 21.
Yeah, Asian people!
Asian people coming all of Asia. So like Asia is in the biggest continent, Asia, like from Palestine to Sri Lanka to Philippines, North China, all of it, Asia. Mixed race adoptee, second generation, first generation, been here for a century or just got here. That's Freedom School. So, with that said, I'll read my first piece. It's called Familiar. Face as flat as a salt lake. If I squint, my Oji-chan's fishing boat disappearing over the edge of your cheek teases me to call after it. I miss you. Okay. Now, I'll get into the stuff that I want to get into. This one was, where did it go? I don't know. Where does love go? Goes to the floor. Okay, so this one was inspired by the fierce Asians at Freedom School.
Yeah.
I don't know the name for it. I'll just say it.
Just make up a name. Whoa.
The name of the first line of the poem is called "Being Too White Was Never Too Much of a Problem for Me." Okay, I'm mixed race. Being too white was never too much of a problem for me. I fit my otherness snugly around my forehead like a dyed black piece of cotton tied tight, implying I just might bust out some karate moves all over your ass if you didn't play nice with me now. Being too Jap, well, what could I know about that? Outside of being locked down in internment camps half a century ago, or waging genocide in archipelagos and dragging girl children out from country homes to rape them repeatedly and never acknowledge their intrinsic rights to grow up. Textbooks published by folks who don't have a problem with being too Nihonjin. Folks who rewrite the history of continents in confident, bold Japanese neatly feed shit to their offspring inside their rice cooked in green tea, or textbooks published by folks who don't have a problem with being too white. Folks who refuse to acknowledge their obsession with exoticism, their privilege, winning them copyrights over my histories, and the legacies of my identities, because some of us don't learn from family stories, don't hear those things from community, because some of us aren't told those family stories and aren't allowed to have community. See, my Ji-chan never had a problem with being too white either. It tried, he did. To survive was to cut off all ties to being an other, an immigrant, a POW, a suicide bomber. Yet there was never enough soap to scrub the yellow from my father. Cutting roots like cutting hair, he set us cold and afloat upon the oceans of 1950s Toronto racism without a clue to paddle with. So, with textbooks, I built up islands. And with textbooks, I find myself in classrooms where shocked, I sit there silent when the woman in front of me seeks to find out what her lotus flower Japanese tattoo really means, until the tongue I lost forms two words for her. Internalized racism. Really meaning, don't ask me, I don't know Japanese. Your tattoo taboo to your parents, stricken from the mouths of mine, thrown out with my father's bathwater, injected into your epidermal layer, printed and reprinted in textbooks. This is not the stuff community is made of. This stuff goes without saying because editors have been too white to realize, been too Japanese to care, leaving me no other option than to become a poet and write it for myself. Thank you. So yes, fierce freedom schoolers, our shit disturbers, our spoken word poets, our visual artists, our dancers, our drag performers. We focus in media mostly on writing, but I think that this year we're going to get into a little bit of theater, movement, some music. We have two new facilitators, one of which is in the audience today with the awesomely colored hat up there, Patrick. And the flyer says that we're going to be starting again on April 1st and running to June 3rd. And that's every Wednesday at Kapisanan, which is in Kensington Market at at Dundas and, Dundas and Spadina. And you got food at 6 o'clock. The workshop starts at 6:30, goes to 8:30. There's TTC tokens. So Asian youth, please come out. Yes, sorry. You do have to be Asian. And the reason, I guess I should say why, because like a lot of groups, when you get together a bunch of youth, sometimes what happens is that youth of color don't have a voice in those groups, or they feel like they can't speak. So the white youth get, all the words and the ideas. In groups that are for youth of color, or people of color specifically, we find that the Asians are then turned into sort of the ones who don't have that much voice. We're not really encouraged to be loud, A Korean American spoken word poet in the States, Ashley Park, said it very eloquently by saying, where are our Malcolms? Where are our Martins? All we have are fathers with thick tongues. And it's very true. We don't have like a lot of strong vocal role models. So Asian Arts Freedom School is here to cultivate that. I just wanted to read one more piece. There seemed to be a bit of a violence theme happening in the earlier performances, so I just wanted to speak to that a little bit, if I can find it. Talk amongst yourselves.
Alright, everyone start talking.
Never mind, I found it. Okay.
Oh, come on. Get
So this
started.
one is about December 6th, and December 6th, for folks, those of us who don't know, is the sort of the day to commemorate violence against women. And the reason why they chose December 6th was that there were 14 young white women shot down in a university in Montreal in the 80s, I believe.
Yep.
And it took 14 white women of privilege in the University of Montreal for, I guess, this country to turn its attention to the problem of violence against women. And I wanted to speak to that. I was asked to speak on December 6th to that. So this is what I wrote. Oh, and a little bit more context. My first piece that I had written for them included the term Asian women, and I wanted to speak about violence specifically against Asian women. But the people organizing told me that I need to take out the word Asian and leave it at just women, because it didn't speak to the entire audience that was going to show up. So then I wrote a new piece and didn't tell them, and then I spoke that piece in response. And I'm very happy. Okay. December 6th. Who do you remember? There is violence in forgetting. Violence in asking me to change my poem from saying Asian women instead to just women, and when I refused to ban the reading. Violence in forgetting the doctors' offices of Puerto Rico who, on America's orders, put their hands on the uteruses of women to stop them from reproducing their people. Violence in forgetting African women were raped in the name of producing more slaves for the economy that you and I have inherited here. Violence against women is residential schools, is CNN's Afghani women, is Toronto Life's myth story on Aksa Pargas. Violence against women is the Japanese Imperial Army, is the pro-life movement.